Thank you for joining us today. We're going to be talking about the city of South Miami, and to lead the way is South Miami Commissioner Brian Corey. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you so much, Mike. It's a pleasure to be here, as always.
All right. So you've been serving the citizens of the South Miami most recently for what period of time?
Around 3.5 years, coming up on 4 years.
It's amazing. It seems like just yesterday you had a very short window to run. If I remember right, it was 6 to 8 weeks.
Yes.
You ran a great campaign, and the people elected you.
Yes.
And so tell us about some of the things that you've been able to do that you're proud of that benefits the citizens and the visitors to South Miami.
Yeah, thank you so much. And, when I was first elected, I had a list of 14, 15 things I wanted to do and tried to start them kind of all at once, and then sort of had to prioritize. And some of the things I ended up prioritizing, one was definitely the rezoning project that we're currently still working on now. And at the time, I didn't realize, of course, there are layers of bureaucracy in the public space. I think they're a good thing, right? When you're spending taxpayer money, you want those layers of bureaucracy, but it's taking quite a bit of time, and it's just now coming to fruition, rezoning the city to make it a smarter plan for the separation of commercial and residential. That was a major point. While I had these initiatives, some things fell on my lap, and particularly the unhoused and homelessness issues. Those came to me, and I've been able to create some great policy in the city and some strategic plans to address those things. I've always been passionate about parks and park improvements. We've been able to create multiple public spaces, which I am really, really proud of, but also enhance existing public spaces and our largest park. So definitely on the park side, planning side, beautification side, those have been major focuses.
Let's talk about the park on the north end of the city. Forgive me, I've forgotten the name of the park.
South Miami Park.
South Miami. Well,
Yeah.
We got South Miami. Tell us about the progress with that.
So I grew up in South Miami, and I played at that park when it was the YMCA, and it was largely a wooded area. We've had control of that for decades now, and unfortunately, because it's such a big park, it's been a hard project for us to execute on, and because of its location.
Which is what avenues and what street?
It's pretty much Bird and Red.
Okay.
It's a little bit further in, but it's because of its location, because of its size, it's been very hard for the city to commit to develop it. So really, ultimately, over the past decades, it's been underdeveloped. And that's very sad for the youth programming that's been on it. And it's been very sad for the opportunities for generations of people to really utilize the space. Fortunately, with the new commission that came in 2 years ago, we've had much better progress in finalizing projects. We finalized and funded that project, and it's almost all the way to fruition now. We finalized a project at Dante Facel as well, and that one is going into construction now too, and we will continue to get projects done.
So many times people complain about how long it takes government to get stuff done, but let's just talk about the Dante Facel. From the time of, hey, let's do something, that initial seed there to now, how long has that been?
So it depends what you're talking about with Dante Facel, right? Because a lot has been done there,
Yes.
especially in the last 10 years. And lots of credit to Commissioner Liebman, who's spearheaded a lot of the improvements at that park. But the reason that it takes so long is, first of all, you got to get it into the city budget, which, occurs once a year, right? And you get it approved. And then once it's in the budget, really you go into a planning phase, a planning and permitting phase. And then you're breaking ground, and there's still permits to be done there. So you're really talking about like 3 years for anything. That's what I'm finding out now, right? I'm coming up to my second term, and really I'm going to be finishing items for my first term because there's a 3-year lead time from funding to planning to construction.
So prior to you becoming a city of South Miami commissioner, you had another life. So tell us about what type of work you were doing and what motivated you to say, hey, I'm going to be an elected official and serve the people of South Miami.
So yeah, I owned an advertising agency for 10 years, and I sold it last year. Of course, 5 years ago, I decided to serve in the city on the planning board. And then from the planning board, I did make the jump to serve on the commission. My time at the planning board through an advisory board, it felt so good to just be able to serve the city and be part of a vision of the future. But I realized that if I could get onto the commission, which was not just an advisory board, I could realize some of this vision a little bit more. And it has been everything I've wanted and more. I absolutely love the job. It comes with its challenges and surprises, right? Like I mentioned before, the layers of bureaucracy, which I'm not even complaining about. I want the layers of bureaucracy for my tax dollars to be spent in the appropriate way.
And that's because you want people to look at it.
Yes.
And it's like, and you say, okay, you have this view and you have this view and something in between.
Right. I want it to be like peer reviewed. I want it to be, hey, here's my idea. And I want everyone to tell me everything that's wrong with that idea. And while that creates bureaucracy, it also refines the ideas and prevents what is the biggest problem in government and planning and making decisions is the unintended consequences of what you do. And I've seen some of those things in some of the very early decisions we've made, however minor, when the unintended consequence is bad and you have to pull that back. That's a terrible feeling that you never want to have. So what we really want to do is be able to come up with really, really good plans, execute them really, really well, and have limited unintended consequences that are negative.
There's a housing affordability crisis that's going on throughout the country. And so often people say, well, it's not affordable. That's a legal term. It's not whether, I mean, if you're making $400,000, what's affordable? And if you're making $50,000, what's affordable? But South Miami has always been behind in housing. There have been some recent changes that have dramatically improved South Miami, especially this part of South Miami. Why don't you tell us about that and the future of affordable housing in South Miami?
Yeah, so again, lead times with housing and building buildings and things like that, it's never going to keep up with the demand. But I would have to say that we have not really contributed very well to, or sorry, we have contributed to the housing crisis in terms of inventory. We've always had very, very limited inventory. The average home value, I stopped keeping track because it's already well over $1 million, which is well outside of any entry-level position. It makes our city a non-multi-generational city, right? Your kids can't live here, and that's a challenge. It sort of makes it less functional. We've done a lot in the code in various areas to try to promote affordable housing, but that also requires developments to come in and do their part. It's been a long process, but we're doing everything that we can to attract the right kind of development and to promote affordable housing.
So one of the things we saw under some of the past administrations, no matter who was there, they resisted for years and years and years the redevelopment of South Miami townhouses. And finally, I think it was under this administration, maybe the last one, I'm not quite sure, Related came in on the county property and replaced the first set of these almost 60-year-old townhouses that outlived their lifespan, and replaced it with a beautiful, beautiful building, which is surrounded by townhouses. Mm-hmm. They're gorgeous. It is as coconut grovey as you can get. And then everybody that was in those buildings were invited back to move back, so nobody really got displaced. And across the street, there it looks like some demolitions going on. And tell us about that the second phase. Is it going to be similar to the first one?
Yes, it will be similar to the first one. We do have some a mixture of affordable workforce and market rate housing going in there. And to point that out, if you look at our city's entire inventory right now, we actually are doing a pretty decent job in terms of percentage with affordable workforce housing. As we develop more, we want to keep that trend going. The reality is the inventory isn't really where it needs to be. And this is an interesting thing. We've resisted this type of development for many, many years. And then enforcement on this has come to us from the county and from the state. Basically, they're saying, no, you have to do this. And South Dade cities, under the leadership of Mayor Corradino, under the Miami-Dade County League of Cities, did a great thing and said, hey, you're painting this with a broad brush. We don't want to build big buildings half a mile from US 1 in either direction all the way down to Pinecrest Cutler Bay. That's not good city planning. Let us come up with a plan and let us serve it to the county and let the county accept it. And that's what we're doing now. And we just so happen to get a head start on that. So we are not going to be subject to having poor development practices because we've created a plan already.
So, Commissioner, it looks like the city has playing a little catch up in a very positive way, because there were years that South Miami did not grow. Everywhere else was growing because there was no inventory.
Yeah.
And now there appears to be here in South Miami. And how many units are those buildings, the related project?
So I don't know the both phases combined, but we will be adding, hundreds of residents to that area, which is going to create what used to be a commercial area there.
Yes.
But that'll come back now because there's going to be ground floor retail, and it's basically going to mesh. We consider that still part of our urban core, going across US 1 into Sunset Place area and places like that.
So let's talk about the building across the street from Casa Cuba, the old Winn-Dixie project property. That building, it looks like the outside work is completed. What are some of the benefits that the local businesses and local residents will have with having that apartment building there, and also the grocery store on the bottom?
Let's just say tremendous, transformative, because basically for the first time, you're going to have real density existing in the city of South Miami and in its urban core. And this is a really, really difficult time that retail's going through right now in our urban core. We're seeing just amazing establishments having to close down. And this may occur even more as the months go on, and hopefully not the years. This project is going to rescue the vitality of our urban core, and then we will just be adding on to it after that. This is, a lot of people think that Sunset Place's redevelopment is the most important. I happen to think this is and will be the most important because it will spark the excitement of our urban core.
And what's the name of the grocery store that's going in?
Fresh Market.
Fresh Market's going to go there. People from all around town, they're going to be able to go there. And in case they don't like that, they're going to be able to go to the new Publix over there in South Coral Gables, right across the street from the
wonderful place to live, by the way. If you live in our urban core, you'll have your choice of grocery stores, you have your choice of restaurants, and you'll be right abutting transit.
And there will be hundreds of people living there, many hundreds. And I don't know how many people will go to grocery stores, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
And those people are coming to South Miami, right? And they're going to say, "Oh, we're grocery shopping, but look, what's across the street there?" And that will put a lot of people walking up and down the streets. So my hat's off to the planners and to the commission for getting that done. Unfortunately, our free parking is gone when we would sneak in over there. All right. So, public safety is a concern to almost everybody. And certainly in cities, one of the reasons people move in cities, they like the police, they like the schools, they like the hospital care, and public safety is way up there. So tell us what the city and the police department are doing to make it safer and better for our residents.
So we have an absolutely fantastic police department, and with the new chief that just came in, Rio Hatfield, he's done some amazing things in updating our technology, our recruiting processes, but we've always had community policing, which I've been a huge fan of, which allows us to have police in very specific districts and zones so that they're very familiar with the area. We've always had amazing response times, under 5 minutes. Really, our police are probably the majority reason that residents are so happy with South Miami. We've really had to play catch up with our parks. We're playing catch up with our urban core and having larger varieties of restaurants and things like that. Our police have been a pretty big saving grace for us, and they will continue to be. But we have to make sure that they're equipped with the best possible facilities. So we hope to maybe update those as we update our City Hall facility, and of course recruit more police officers as our population grows. With the new developments coming online. So reinvesting in our police is a major plan with the new revenues we hope to come online from commercial taxes.
So one of the things we recognize, when you're little and you can learn to trust the police, all right, you grow up being a trusting adult and not being afraid, but being thankful. It's one of those few jobs that, unlike a fireman, when you see a fireman, hey, and it's never a threat, all right? But with police, depending on, I'm going to get a traffic ticket, but I'm the one that's going to call them when I have a problem. Could be the same guys, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about, you mentioned about unsheltered people that don't have a place to stay. And we know there's been some recent court rulings out and also in San Francisco, they made some changes out there. So tell us about our unsheltered issues here in the city of South Miami.
Thank you. Yeah. So this, like I said before, this item originally came to me. There was a concerned person working at the library that really wanted to help with it. And it sort of just brought me down this path of really learning the issue, really understanding the issue, and coming up with a smart approach to the issue. Coming at it from a service-only standpoint can create some enabling that creates problems with the business owners, creates problems with the individuals who are suffering too. So we had to create this balance of service and enforcement through a strategic plan that basically says that those people who are chronically homeless, people who have lived on the streets for a year or longer, we're looking to get them all into programs to get permanent supportive housing. And that's what we're actively doing right now. And that can be difficult. A lot of them are resistant to services, but they've been open to the idea of permanent supportive housing. Now, we've been able to do that on almost no budget in the first 2 years. And then now we've applied a very, very small amount of budget for outreach. That's really accelerated that process. And our goal, our expressed goal, is to get down to 3 in total or less chronically homeless individuals in the city of South Miami.
It's quite a number.
Yes.
How long have you had this level of interest in this challenge?
Honestly, it was not part of my top 15. It came to me as a problem, and I think maybe it was just the way my brain worked. I was like, oh, I have to solve this. And then I realized why it wasn't so easily solved. And I realized that it was an incredibly complex, incredibly difficult, incredibly frustrating problem, but I was not willing to let it go. So I have continued in, monthly outreach meetings that we do. I've continued to try and get more funding to address the issue. I've continued in working directly one-on-one in each individual case to try and figure out what small item needs to be resolved to get someone into permanent housing. And since I've been here, we've gotten dozens of people into shelters and a good amount of people into permanent supported housing, which is, the express goal. And all of them, by the way, are doing extremely well. Very few of them ever return to the streets when you're able to get them into that
Seems like
situation.
You're living a life of fulfillment and passion.
Yes, it is. It's not a guilty pleasure, but it's very, very enjoyable to serve the
And
city.
I've seen the difference. Last time we were here probably was a year or two ago. I see the difference in you, and where you've really grabbed a hold of this.
Well, I understand it better. A lot of us elected officials, it's very hard to come into this position having the right kind of experience, even if you serve on a board, even if you've been familiar with city or state or federal government, coming into the very special charter rules that exist within a city, coming into the departments and the level of bureaucracy, learning how to get things done is very difficult. But I have been fortunate that very shortly after I was elected, a new board came into play that is just filled with excellent professionals who we've all supported each other in our initiatives. And I believe we've gotten more done the last 2 years than, I'm not going to disparage any previous commissions, but we've gotten a lot done in the last 2 years. And I'm very proud of what we've been able to get done.
Speaks of the synergy that is there and the leadership and the willingness of the volunteers, right, to make a difference. And you have, and I hear you loud and clear. We speak to a lot of people that are involved in that arena. And it's nice to see that in itself, South Miami has been able to, in their own way, for South Miami to make that better. And it's not just for the citizens. It's not, they won't be out on the street begging. It's for them to try to get them into, meaning the unsheltered, get them into some sort of program where they can become a little bit more functional.
Yeah.
So what is that really like for you inside when you go, there used to be 10 people out here, and now there are only 3. What's that like for you personally?
I think it's surreal sometimes to see the people that you helped 2-3 years ago when they were at rock bottom, and to see how functioning they are now and what their lives are like now. But it's hard for me to kind of dwell on those things when the problem still exists and the goal still exists. Get that down to 3 or less. I know if we make this a top 10 priority in the city, that we could get to that goal. Getting it to a top 10 priority requires a certain level of attention, a certain level of funding that everyone's I'm going to have to bring everybody on board to So as much as I've enjoyed the progress that we've made, I know how far behind we are, and I'm just not dwelling on any accomplishments that have happened.
Your
so
wife
far.
and little girl must be proud of you for doing that and making a difference, because it's when people are vulnerable that they may not want to ask for help, but when they get it, all right, they know that. And if you really change the lives, not just of those people, but of the people that are immediately surrounding you. So congratulations on that. Let's talk about mental illness and drug abuse and what you can do and what the city might be doing so that we can bring these issues to the forefront, and how do we get people that are in need or about to be in need get them help.
Yeah, so I think this goes to almost everything that we're trying to do. The new city manager, Chip Iglesias, has been amazing at bringing forward strategic communication with the city, both from a promotional standpoint and from a services standpoint. For us to reach everybody, to be able to provide what is a finite amount of services that we can provide, we need to be able to laser target areas, because we don't have the resources to actively promote these services in a way that we can reach everybody. We have to reach the exact targeted people. I think we have the best communications teams that we have ever had at the city. We now have a community outreach individual, and we have a marketing person. And, if you've seen the correspondence that we put out there, both on our services and the types of promotions and events and promoting our businesses, I think we have an app now. We're really communicating with our residents better than we ever have. And of course, for the most part though, and in all transparency, we don't necessarily have the budgets to handle those things, but we do have the budgets to connect with the individuals and then connect them to county programs which can handle them. So
you're familiar with our local commissioner, Raquel Regalado. She is the proud mother of two adult, they're not children anymore, her children, both adults that are on the spectrum. And she's an advocate for them. And she was at the event the other day, and she said they deserve a seat at the table. So one of the things that she has done, she's from a county commission level, she's been able to go, I hope I got it right, different departments and train people at the seaport and the airport and other big places. So listen, there are people that look differently than you and me that may need your help.
Yeah.
And also, from what I understand, that a parent can have on their home a label, so when the police show up, they see somebody that doesn't look like you and me, that may have an issue, to be able to say there's an autistic child that lives here.
Yeah.
So I know that there's something that the city can do, whether it's through the police department, and when you speak to, go ahead.
So the city has adopted that, and we're just so fortunate to have Commissioner Regalado, because she is very active with us in this. So we've adopted decals for the home and for the car. Right. On top of that, we actually, I worked with Commissioner Regalado to create the first sensory room in a city in South Dade, and she in part funded the development of the room. And we have other programming as well, but she's always bringing these ideas. And we actually, Commissioner Kaye sponsored, with her help, the first disabilities board in the city too. So she has been very, very active. It's incredible what she's been able to do for this community in such a short period of time, and how much she still has left to do.
So when people stand up like that, as you are doing, it helps other people also stand up for that, whether it's your cause or another cause. Let's talk about drug issues. It's a gigantic problem, and alcohol and all that stuff. And if it's not in your family, it's right outside your family. There's no question, about that. So is the city able to at least have some awareness campaigns, or what can it do to at least bring attention to the issues and to be able to direct people?
Yeah, I think awareness campaigns are very, very important. We do have a clinic in South Miami that is trying to focus a little bit more heavily on mental health. What we're seeing is just incredible. It may be the worst long-lasting legacy of the pandemic is the mental health crisis and the substance abuse crisis, which are most of the time one and the same. It's like a self-medication.
Yes.
And our free clinic is definitely helping with that. But, we're going to need much greater services than that. The city does not have the type of case management services or those type of services, but we have found that we can find great ways through our police department and through our communications to connect people with the resources that they need. But that's a great point, and it'd be great for us to be able to do more with that, because that is again a crisis that is not going away. Mental health issues and substance abuse issues do not solve themselves, and so many were created in that period.
Yes.
And so many have been created since.
Yes. So there's an election coming up. You're running for office. So the big question is, number one, what would you like to get done, and then should you get reelected for the next 4 years?
Well, great question. And obviously, as I mentioned before, there are many things that I've started that I'm so passionate about following through on, which is obviously the city planning, the projects that we have approved and have broken ground. It's very important to continue to advocate for those so that they are finalized. But in the next 4 years, I have the opportunity, we actually have a Parks 10-year plan coming up. And I'm so incredibly excited about that, because I think if we can take Dante Facel and take our newly created South Miami Park and we create those as standards for the types of parks that we can develop, we can really do something special here. We don't have a lot of parks, and we're not going to be able to create that many more. So we can make them a very special place. Beautification is a huge item on the agenda. I got an item passed to beautify Sunset Drive west of 62nd Avenue. And that's going to be the start of what we're also working on, which is a master landscaping plan in the city.
Drive west. Okay. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So, and then probably one of the bigger items that I'm looking to address, I think you know where I live. I live a little bit further north. We do believe that it is important for us to annex that area of the city. We obviously have the oddest, least contiguous boundaries probably of any city in Miami-Dade County. And because of that, we do service an area that is largely Miami-Dade County, with our police going through various other reasons. We're developing parks in those neighborhoods. I think it's only appropriate that we do try to bring that city in, square up our borders.
And how many homes is that area you're talking about?
It's got to be in, I would have to do the math on it.
Is it 200 homes or less?
No, it's more.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot of homes, because you're talking about the area north of Miller up to Blue Road.
Yeah.
That already has a ton. And then there's Blue Road all the way to Bird. So there is a large amount of homes that we'll hopefully be able to annex. Part of that is really explaining well the services that we provide, and also explaining well how the millage works, right? Everybody's scared their taxes are going to double overnight or something, and that's just not the case. And then explaining the taxes as well, because right now our taxation rate's somewhere in the middle between cities. We're not as high as some of our neighbors, and we're not as low as some of our neighbors, but the services that we provide are great, and we have great opportunities with development coming to not only be able to reinvest in all these projects I'm talking about, but also lower taxes, because not many cities have the kind of composition that we do of commercial to residential. We can almost be like 50-50, which is wild.
Yes.
Because of how small we are geographically, but then how big our commercial footprint is. The residents of South Miami can benefit from commercial tax revenue for generations if we do this right.
Okay, we're going to wrap it up.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Commissioner Brian Corey,
Always a pleasure to speak.
thank you very much for being here and for serving. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks. All right.
Absolutely.
And the last day to vote is November 5th, 5th.
Yeah,
that's
November
the last
5th,
day.
Yeah, November 5th, you vote in person.
All right.
So, yeah.
That's the last day.
Yes.
So as soon as you get your ballot in the mail, whatever it is, do it and vote. If people want to find out more about you, they can find your website online.
Yeah.
And great.
It's briancorey.com.
Of
but
course.
yeah, you can.
Hey, folks, thanks for joining us. Remember, take care of yourselves and your family. Have a good day.